Awesome. Colin, thanks so much for joining us here. Really excited to have you on and really excited to kind of dig into your journey a little bit more. So maybe we can start there and you can tell us a bit about how you got to where you are today.
Certainly. Well, Ty, thank you for having me. I'm excited for the conversation. My current role is the Senior Vice President of Global Channel and Field Operations at Appfire. And we are a technology provider predominantly in the Atlassian ecosystem, although we have technology in a couple other partner-driven ecosystems today. I've been with the company for less than a year, so it's still a relatively new role to me. So I'll back up a little bit to talk about how I got here. Early in my career, I graduated from college right around the time of 9/11. So it was a really interesting time for the economy. The job I had lined up in Los Angeles, where I went to college, didn't end up coming through, and I ended up selling internet advertising for a couple of years, hitting the phones, getting rejected by a lot of people, and learning the skills of being a resilient salesperson. That transitioned into about a decade of my career where I was working in the marine industry, and I was really working in a manufacturing and distribution capacity for heavy industrial equipment that was often used by large ships, large yachts. So I was chasing boats around the world for quite a long time as a global sales and marketing leader with progressively more and more responsibility. Um, I reached a point in sort of the mid 2010s, if you will, where I was seeing I was doing some CRM implementations and some marketing automation implementations at my company, and I was really in tune to how forward-thinking companies were leveraging technology in new ways, and I very quickly realized that my industry was not one that was ahead of the curve in that area, and I very deliberately wanted to get closer to the cutting edge of technology. I grew up in Seattle, and so like any good Seattleite, I had friends at Amazon, I had friends at Microsoft, and I started putting the word out. But I didn't have a resume that was really applicable for a lot of those tech jobs. Um, After getting turned down and passed around by quite a few people at those companies, I found a really interesting opportunity at Amazon, where they were building a business that became, when we launched it, Amazon Business, which is the B2B physical goods marketplace that's still operating today. So I was a member of that original launch team, and I spent about 5 years at Amazon Business on the marketing side of the organization. And the reason that Amazon took a chance on me was they were trying to recruit, market to, sell to suppliers who weren't currently listing their products on the marketplace. So really, you've got this new B2B marketplace, and Amazon's obviously really good at selling to consumers. They were noticing at the time that a lot of businesses were buying on Amazon, but they didn't have all the business specific selection yet. So a person like me who came from that industrial space, I worked with and worked for companies that looked a lot like the types of suppliers that Amazon wanted to bring to the marketplace. So they were willing to take a chance on me. And I spent, 5 amazing years there. Have wonderful friends from that time, from zero, launching a business up till 3 a.m., hoping the web page, the landing pages go live, to a year in, we were at a $1 billion annual run rate. And by the time I left, we were closer to 12 or $15 billion of annual run rate after about a 5 year run. So incredible experience. Really appreciate what I learned at Amazon. I've taken a lot of the operational rigor and a lot of the cultural aspects of what I learned at Amazon with me throughout my career. Um, but I did reach a point where I found myself wanting to move to smaller, high growth organizations, and that's been a trend for me throughout my career. I'm a big believer that large companies love specialists, and startups really like generalists. And every once in a while, I like sitting in more of a generalist role where I get to pick and choose hard problems to solve on a daily basis, rather than feeling like I really have to focus on real depth into one specific area. So just personal preference of mine, I found a good time to make the leap. And at that point, I was able to join Qualtrics. And Qualtrics at that point was owned by SAP, but preparing for a spin-off IPO. So over 2 years at Qualtrics, I led several different marketing organizations, always partnering with specific sales leaders to make sure we were developing the right, vision of pipeline and keeping the sales teams fed in a very sales-driven organization. But I got the experience of, being a part of SAP, then going through that full NASDAQ Wall Street IPO process, which is just an incredible experience. And at that point, also, Qualtrics helped me move my family out to the East Coast, where we now currently reside, just outside of Raleigh, North Carolina. Um, and then after a couple of years at Qualtrics, wasn't exactly on the market, but I heard from a recruiter about this technology company that was building something pretty amazing. And I won't go into all the details there, but needless to say, I'm at Appfire today and really enjoying my experience in a very partner-driven, channel-led organization, which is obviously it's delightful to lead a channel team when the organization is fully behind what you're building and how they're investing in your operations. So that's a very short synopsis of how I've gotten to where I am, but happy to dig in where you and your audience will find value.
Awesome. Yeah, I mean, I think the thing that's going to be really exciting about this conversation for me is obviously you have like a depth of experience in marketing as well, and so you're going to have like a really nice lens on a lot of the things you're doing today from your experience in marketing, and so I like. I'm interested to dig into that in
Yeah,
general, but I think like I'd love to start actually like I had some questions about Amazon Business
sure,
because I think
sure.
there's a lot of people there's a lot of people who are in partnerships that want to build an ecosystem, and like really what an ecosystem means today is a marketplace, right?
Yeah,
And people generally start with the directory, and then it's like, okay, well, do you want people to actually be able to do something on the directory, and really you want them to be able to transact, and quite quickly it becomes a marketplace, and
yeah,
that's what Salesforce, AWS, Azure, like
yeah.
Apple Store,
Right.
that's really what all of those things have become. And it sounds like that's what you were doing for Amazon Business, is building that
Yeah,
marketplace. And I would love to start with like, I mean, I would love to really start with at the high level, like how you think something like that, like the Amazon store, like correlates and or doesn't to like a partner ecosystem,
sure.
because and like same with the App Store, same with these other marketplaces, and then
Yeah.
from there I'd love to dive a little bit deeper into some of the specifics.
Yeah. Well, I, I think in general, the more I reflect back on that, the more similarities I find. I mean, Amazon Business, it is a physical goods marketplace, right? It's not a software marketplace, it's not a services marketplace, but a lot of those same dynamics are there, right? It's this idea that by opening up this ecosystem, this marketplace, by opening it up to more suppliers, more players, more value added contributors, you're able to find more ways to add value to the customer. I mean, that's really what we were talking about at Amazon, which is, you know, more selection is always good for the customer. Customers want more selection. More competition with more selection will inherently lower prices for the customers. Customers never want to pay higher prices if they don't have to. And then certainly, if you can wrap that in convenience factors like delivery, whether you're delivering physical goods or you're implementing a software program, same experience, you want to deliver that great experience to the customer as well. And when done correctly, the seller, the customer, and the platform operator all win. Everyone gets a piece of that commerce in a way that everyone benefits. And I think a lot of those dynamics, really remain true whether you're talking about physical goods or whether you're talking about software and services. So um, I think this is not a new concept, right? Marketplaces have been around for thousands of years. It's just that the dynamics, the terminology, the lexicon that we use to talk about it has certainly matured and shifted. And now there's almost this sort of magical mystique around the idea of marketplaces. You have to have a marketplace to succeed, and it's certainly interesting because it's been around in the B2B supply space for a long time, and really what it boils down to, and what I've distilled a lot of this learning down to, is customers love it. Customers love it. There's more choice. there's more power for the customer. The inherent competition between suppliers and value-added providers gives the customers more choice and more buying power. That's really what it comes down to. So, a lot of, definitely a lot of similarities there. I think one of the biggest takeaways that I've taken from that Amazon Business Marketplace experience and applied across all of the other market, whether we're talking about the Qualtrics partner network, whether we're talking about now the Atlassian ecosystem or the Azure DevOps ecosystem. One of the things that I learned from that Amazon experience is a challenge question that I use very often, especially when I'm talking to solution providers, value added resellers, people like that. Because one of the biggest mistakes I see sellers make in these marketplaces is they get very keyed in on the way they want to sell. This is the way we sell. This is the way we go to market. And very often there's a small distinction that I encourage people to think about. And my challenge question is this: are you more focused on the way you want to sell or the way customers want to buy? There's a big difference there. There's a big difference there. We saw it a lot with the e-commerce revolution, right? Where you had these sort of old school suppliers, old sort of industrial distribution companies, fourth generation, family owned, and they'd say, no, we've got a direct sales organization. We've trained them up. They know more about their customers' business than our customers do sometimes. And they know when everyone's birthday is. They bring donuts to the receptionist. They sponsor the Little League team. That's the way we sell. And you go talk to the customer, and the customer says, I don't want to have to call that guy every time I'm reordering products that I already know I need. I don't always need a consultative sale. Why isn't there an easier way for me to transact, especially around things like essentially renewals, ordering something again, resupplying? So there was that real disconnect between the way we want to sell and the way customers want to buy, where I've seen a lot of unnecessary tension, because the true value of the marketplace, the reason it's been around for thousands of years, is customer empowerment. Customers have more choice. The inherent competition within a marketplace, whether you go back thousands of years and it's the different vendors yelling for the customer's attention, it's the same idea. That competition ends up bringing value to a customer who has chosen to transact in that manner. And if you can get back to those basics, the ecosystem's a wonderful model, right? It's a fantastic model. But I think a lot of times the tension comes in that form of, this is the way we want to sell versus, have you just talked to the customer? And sometimes it can be that simple. And that's a little trick that, that Amazon customer obsession brings to the table. And it's a great challenge question, again, that I've used throughout my career. Are you more focused on the way you want to sell? And should you be more focused on the way customers want to buy? And if you're focused on the latter rather than the former, oftentimes the answers to your biggest problems become much more clear.
Yeah, no, I absolutely love that, and I guess following up off of that, so like everyone wants to be the center of their ecosystem, and if
Yeah.
many ecosystems, you know, the way they generate value is through the marketplace.
Hmm.
Can everyone build a marketplace? Like obviously Amazon can, right? It's a marketplace
Yeah.
company, but
Yeah.
well, like what, at least for you, what's your read on that? Are there certain things that someone has to have in place before being able to build a marketplace?
Well, I think you're taking on a lot of responsibility, right? You're taking on a lot of responsibility, a lot of liability. If you are the merchant of record, if you are the keeper of the transaction, it brings tax implications, it brings receivables implications, depending on your methods of transactions. Um, to answer your question, anybody, the technology is available today. Anyone can build a marketplace, right? It's technically feasible, but I think there's a big difference between, um, you know, are you sure that you really want your own marketplace, or do you just see a marketplace as a new channel for you to grow? And those are two very different paths. And I encourage everyone to think really hard about that, because it may be easy to say, I want my own marketplace. That's great. But if there's a lot of marketplaces already out there because of the ubiquity of this technology that's now available to anyone to build one, are you better off participating in these, participating as an active, as an active, engaged member of that ecosystem. And in many cases, that could end up being far more profitable because you're not taking on all of the same costs and all the same liability that the platform operator is taking on by running their own marketplace. I mean, I'll use an example today. I mean, we're very, we operate predominantly in the Atlassian ecosystem and on the Atlassian marketplace. Atlassian makes our lives really easy in some ways, right? They're handling a lot of the transactions. They handle a lot of the discoverability of our products. And as a channel and as a channel team leader, we don't spend a lot of time recruiting new partners because Atlassian does such a great job of that for us. So we can focus on enablement, partner development, partner empowerment, and really engaging those customers into how to leverage our products to add value to the Atlassian stack, if you will, and deliver better outcomes to customers. And if we're focusing on that, it's a great way for us to maintain, a tremendous amount of growth and profitability without having to take on some of the additional weight of starting a brand new marketplace from scratch and then competing with some of the really mature, powerful marketplaces that are already out there that customers are already gravitating towards. So it's a great way for us to be a player in multiple ecosystems without having to feel like we need to produce our own, our own marketplace and take on everything that encompasses.
Yeah, yeah, and I love that, and I think that that's a bit of what I was hoping to hear from you.
Yeah,
It's like, and like especially around, like the reality is that for many companies, it is better to play in an existing marketplace,
yeah,
rather than trying to invent your own. And I saw this. There was like a kind of a series of tweets recently where I won't name names, but some well-known investors basically said, doing any sort of channel strategy early on is a complete waste of time. Like there's nothing that's going to happen there. And there's so many examples of people that have built in the Atlassian ecosystem or
yeah.
in the Salesforce App Exchange or wherever else, and built massive, very successful businesses off the back of just purely a channel strategy.
Oh, absolutely.
Uh,
Well, and the way, in the Atlassian ecosystem, you can have a wonderfully successful app, for example, without even having a channel strategy,
yeah,
right? I mean, there's a real true sort of PLG motion that kicks in, and that's the way this marketplace was built. Was you bring really well built technology to the marketplace, and that's where the community comes in. That's where word of mouth comes in. That's where the investments that Atlassian has made in things like their user group communities really comes to play. If you build good products that are helping companies solve problems, the community aspect of the ecosystem kicks in a very meaningful way. So there are a lot of great apps out there that don't even have a channel strategy because a lot of that discoverability is actually kicking in with reviews and
mm-hmm.
community conversations and word of mouth, right? So at Appfire, we've reached a critical mass on that marketplace where we know that channel is an accelerator for us,
Mm-hmm.
right? So we've had a lot of that great PLG growth. We have wonderful apps. We have wonderful technologies that we can offer. But we also know that now we have enough technology that if we take the right focus on enablement and empowerment of the channel, it's a multiplier for us. It's an
Yeah,
accelerator for us, right? And so it becomes not, it's not a necessity. It is a value added accelerator for us,
mm-hmm.
which is what makes it really exciting because leadership sees that, our investors see that, and they've been very generous and positive about giving us the resources we need to better support our channel partners. And it enables us to become a preferred supplier, right? We become
Yeah,
a preferred supplier when customers are coming to our partners to get their problems solved. We want to be first on the list of preferred vendors that they will recommend to provide those extensions or add-ons or customizations to Jira, for
mm-hmm.
example, in a way that's going to, really in a focused way, deliver more value to that customer experience. And if we get a chance to be that vendor, obviously we've spent our money in the right places.
Yeah, and tell me a little bit about, and we're kind
Sure.
of jumping back and forth because I
Yeah.
want to jump back to Amazon Business stuff as well. But this is so
Yeah.
interesting.
Sure.
Like, so tell me, like, what's the like? How do people lean in to something like this? Like, for instance, it sounds like there is a list on the the marketplace and build a great product, and you could be really successful. But it sounds like what you're doing is like, you've leaned in with a really intended strategy
Yeah,
with Atlassian, and I would love to hear a little bit about like what leaning in like that means, like from a people,
yeah.
process, priorities perspective.
One of the benefits that Appfire has in the Atlassian ecosystem is history. So we go back a long way. Our founder and co-CEO Randall Ward goes way back with the founders of Atlassian, and has created a lot of those great relationships. And that's not something you can do deliberately. That's a wonderful landing spot that makes my job a lot easier. But I think one of the things that that's taught me about really leaning into supporting channels, supporting partners, is that there is very definitely a qualitative and a quantitative aspect to success in the ecosystem in a channel partnership. And when I say quantitative and qualitative, we've got to deliver numbers. We've got to set the right KPIs. We have to have the right tools and systems and processes in place. That's operational rigor that we have to have in order to be a responsibly owned company. But I can't underscore the importance of really solid relationships, long-term trusted relationships with our top partners, where they're even calling us for advice on certain business decisions sometimes, right? It's elevating above the transactional to become a true strategic partner. And there's different ways to do that. Sometimes for me, it's as simple as sharing another layer of how a partner has sold their products through us, which apps are most popular, which categories are they really, are they really doing well in? Because anytime I'm able to use data or insights that are just available to me, anytime I'm able to use that to teach a partner something new about their business, we've elevated above the transactional to become a true strategic partner that they're going to call on earlier and more often in any future deal cycle. So I am by design a very data driven operator. I love to have data to validate my decisions, but I also know that I'm a huge beneficiary and a proponent of developing deep relationships as well. We spend time going to see our partners. We spend time gathering with our partners. I'm very deliberate about creating a calendar of touch points where we're in front of people and cultivating those relationships, understanding where partners are focused on charitable giving. Sometimes that's a wonderful way for us to participate with them. At Appfire, we're a part of Pledge 1%. Giving back is a big part of our DNA. So we're looking for those types of opportunities to get closer. Sometimes a day in the field helping with a partner in one of those types of scenarios is as impactful as any QBR you can deliver. So I just say that leaning in for us is absolutely investing in tools, investing in systems, investing in the right programs and efficiency levers that you want to see in any business relationship. But at the same time, one of the things that I talk about with my team, they're going to laugh at me for saying this on the podcast, but I talk about we have an available differentiator, which is being damn delightful to do business with.
Mm-hmm.
And if we ever lose that, all we are is metrics. And people don't pick up the phone for advice when they just need metrics. They pick up the phone for advice when they know that you're a trusted strategic partner that has their best interests in mind, because you've proven that time and time again in the way you treat them, in the way you treat your people, and the way you show up in the world.
Yeah.
And that's a brand marketing thing. That is a talent brand thing. And that is just remembering what the logo means, and making sure that it's not just a cute set of values that you put on the website, but a set of values that you show up exemplifying on a daily basis. And that's the qualitative side of things that I think often get missed when we start to talk about how to set up a spreadsheet and how to do your account mapping and how to do all these tactical things, right? Be damn delightful to do business with. And I guarantee your business will grow.
Yeah. Yeah. I love it. My team and I went through an exercise not that long ago around,
Yeah.
like what are our key
Yeah.
differentiators, and
Yeah.
like number one ultimately was like we have to be
That's
the
it.
best company to partner with, like people
That's
have
it.
to enjoy
Yeah.
working with us, and
Yeah.
that's like, and you've you've been in the business long enough to understand the same thing. I think a lot of people
Yeah.
miss that. They
Yeah.
get into this and they're like, oh, we have to have the best one pages, or like
Yeah.
I haven't got enough of this or that or the other. And the reality is, if you're just the easiest team to work with,
Yeah.
if like people feel like they could just shoot you a text message or a Slack or give you a call and just be like, oh, what do you think about this? Like
Yeah. Yeah.
that's how you get deals. That's how you generate revenue. That's how you
Absolutely.
build relationships. It's just being easy to
Right.
work with. I love
Well,
delightful. Delightful is an upgrade on easy. I
yeah.
might update our
Well,
language.
I encourage it, and this is something, this is definitely something I took away from my time at Qualtrics, right? Where we are focused on experiences, right? And at Qualtrics, the idea of experience management is that every place that a brand touches a customer or an employee or a product, you can measure that experience. There's a data point behind that. And while I totally agree with that, what I like even more is just this focus on experience. So we're talking about things like, yes, delivering on the metrics again, but we're also very focused on things like, what is the partner experience going to be when we roll out this new program? What's the partner experience going to be when they need to access our intake form to get approved to participate in this new program? Thinking about those experiential touch points, um, that's still data driven. It doesn't mean that we're leaving the data. It means that we're looking at delightful experiences as a measurable data point that we can incorporate into our planning, right? Where do we have surprise and delight moments, right? We talk about surprise and delight moments a lot. Is it as simple as when you're showing up to when you've got partners showing up to an event you've organized? What do you put in the bag that's waiting in their hotel room? How thoughtful and personalized can you be? Because often just one more layer of personalization or one more piece of thoughtfulness. Hey, channel manager, what's that partner's what's their kid into? What's their favorite sport? Can we incorporate something there? Something very lightweight, but something that will be remembered when it comes to the experience. Because people are going to associate the experience they've had with your brand and with your team, in some cases, much more over time than just the value, the extra points you delivered on a deal, right? The experience will carry with you longer. So how can you lean in on experience? And that's really where I think I've had the benefit of, working for a variety of companies that have given me the gift of these different lenses through which I can now view my current business and try to incorporate, the operational rigor of Amazon, the focus on experiential surprise and delight moments that we talked about a lot at Qualtrics, and now in this relationship driven ecosystem model. How can I meld all those things together to create a better experience for our partners and therefore for our customers? Because a partner that is well supported by their vendors, that knows they're going to get their problem solved if a problem arises, they're going to recommend you early and often, and they're going to keep coming back. And that enthusiasm about working with you as a vendor, working with Appfire as a vendor, is going to come through every time that partner talks about us with their customers. And that's brand equity that you can't buy. That's brand equity that you earn.
Yeah, I absolutely love that. It's so awesome, and it's making me feel like I need to kind of revisit some of the things that we're doing. We're redesigning our partner program at the moment.
Oh,
And,
sure. Yeah.
yeah, it couldn't be more relevant to what the conversations we're having right now. As you were saying that,
Yeah.
I was like, I'm sending this recording to my partner program manager and the person that runs the marketplace on my team, like
Yeah.
immediately.
So am I gonna get some rude messages from your team
Yeah, they're
about
going
like
to be
when
like,
to
"What are
have
you
to reach me
doing,
out?
Colin?
Yeah,
You're making
yeah.
my life harder. This is not
Ty, we we
delightful."
we we published this podcast, and my LinkedIn has gone really dark for a while. I don't know
Yeah,
what's going on. What
yeah,
did you do to me?
yeah.
Yeah,
Everyone from
yeah.
Deal is mad, and I don't know
I don't know. I
why.
don't know. I don't know what I did. We're trying to be delightful. I don't get
Yeah,
it.
it could happen.
Yeah.
So I'd love to go back to the
Sure.
Amazon business launch because I
Yeah.
think so
Yeah.
something you touched upon that's really relevant to people that are trying to build out marketplaces is in general is the
Yeah.
like the recruiting of, in your
Yeah.
case it was suppliers, for other
Yeah.
people it's developer, app developers, or it might be service partners,
Hmm.
like that that side of the marketplace, right?
Yeah,
Like the supply side of the marketplace. Like, tell
sure.
me a little bit about how that came about at Amazon Business, and like how you kind of
Yeah,
brought people in and created value for them.
yeah. I can already tell that I'm sensing people laughing about this answer because the people that were with me on this journey know how difficult that was. Um, I had a wonderful manager and mentor at the time, and a big part of what we were doing was we went through a very rigorous Amazon PR training, um, and we went and hit the road, and we went to trade shows, conferences, events where some of our biggest detractors were. Right, so this would be the associations of industrial suppliers, for example, that were none too pleased to have Amazon playing in their sandbox, essentially. And so, I walked on some stages. I used to joke with our PR team that I needed an Amazon business branded flak jacket because I felt like I was going to get, attacked at some point on stage. I would walk on these big stages with thousands of people in the room and felt like laser beams were sort of shooting out at their eyes because Amazon is here to take over the world and everything. And Ty, it was a result of those experiences that led me to better be able to articulate that difference between how you want to sell versus the way customers want to buy. That was really the output of that experience, because very often it was, we've made all the investments here and Amazon wants to do, you want my data and you want to take all my customers and you want to do this. And really, we wanted to bring our customers to your products. We didn't have enough selection. Like, we wanted to expose your products. And one of my talk tracks, and I'll get back to the main point here, but one of my talk tracks was, we're not here to tell you that you need to do anything different. We're here to tell you that we have thousands, tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands, millions of customers looking for more products like yours. The data tells us this, right? They're looking for more products like yours. They really like the experience we have created for them to procure those products. We're looking for your selection, right? So, in some ways, it was almost saying, it's not really about you, right? And I understand that we're talking about an entirely different way of doing business that disrupts investments that you've made in the past. There are channel conflict issues that are bound to arise when you've moved from traditional two-step distribution to an e-commerce scenario where territories aren't recognized. Map pricing is not recognized. There were some inherent challenges in that topic, but really the core was, um, we created a marketplace that was resonating with customers. And as long as that remained true, that was a proof of, a proof point around which we could ground all the rest of our recruitment of suppliers, which is that we've created an experience that's resonating with customers. Do you want access to those customers? Right? And that was really the baseline, because any other arguments became tangential, because you could bring it back to this, you could bring the entire conversation back to this idea that customers want more selection. They're enjoying this buying experience. Do you want to be a part of it? And so I think that was um, one of the tricks there was simplification, but the other trick was, it wasn't even a trick, it was customer obsession. Does the marketplace experience resonate with customers? Because if you don't have that, you're not going to create an ecosystem. The ecosystem is built around a system of multipliers that bring more value to the customer, right? So if you're not starting with a clear vision of how your mousetrap or your solution or your marketplace is going to bring more value through those multipliers of the ecosystem to that customer, what's the point? You don't have a value proposition at that point.
Yeah, I absolutely love that. Yeah, it's really, really compelling, and so, and it sounds like, so a key part of that value prop was already having the demand side, so that you could go out and get the supply
Yeah,
side, and
yeah.
and so tell me a little bit about that. Was that like an intentional strategy, or?
Oh, it was. We had a tremendous gift, which was uh, a lot of data that
Mhm,
was telling us that businesses were already buying on Amazon.
mhm.
Right? They were using their Prime accounts. They were using, they were getting office supplies delivered to their home addresses, or they were getting office supplies delivered to their office using their Prime account and then putting it on an expense report.
Mm.
right? And we had a lot of data that proved that activity was going on, and we just said there's a better way to do this. Essentially, business buyers had hacked the consumer marketplace. They hadn't hacked it, but they were using it in a way that we had not intended. And so it was a very clear value proposition to create a marketplace experience that was better suited to these customers, around which we had a ton of data that was telling us that the experience was resonating. So we knew which aspects of that experience to keep and which ones we needed to expand upon, which were things like integrations into expense systems, integrations into procurement systems, and really selection, right? What do business buyers buy? And that was where a lot of my early focus came in, which is how do we speak this language of e-commerce to industries that have been highly resistant to e-commerce for some very simple things like price transparency. Traditional B2B transactions were not transparent.
Hmm.
You went and you got on the phone and you talked about your business problems, and you talked about, you went through a typical discovery call, and then you got a quote.
Yeah.
And your friend down the road who runs a similar business could have gone and had the same conversation and got a very different quote, but that seller was resting assured that you weren't talking to each other,
Yeah.
right? So you didn't know where the pricing methodology was coming from. But as these consumers, everybody buying for work is also a consumer at home, right? So when you got used to filling your refrigerator and your closet and your supplies with this at home, and then you had to go into the office and send a fax to a supplier with an order sheet and then wait for it to get confirmed, and that this didn't make sense.
Yeah.
This was inherently illogical to people who enjoyed a new purchasing experience at home that they couldn't access when they got to work. So that sort of mismatch in experiences is a big part of what we at Amazon were able to capitalize on at that time. But we had a tremendous amount of data that backed it up. So that was
Yeah.
that was certainly a gift. Not everyone who's going to be starting their new entrepreneurial idea is going to have access to that kind of data. Was it an accelerator for our plans? Absolutely. Like the data that we had available to us was insane. I call Amazon Business the most well-funded startup I've ever worked for, um, because if you showed Jeff B, that you had a good idea and data to back it up, you could get your idea funded. And
Yeah.
that's a big part of how Amazon has grown to the degree that it has, was encouraging great ideas to grow from within. And Amazon Business was no different.
Yeah, that is amazing. And to your exact point around like, being customer centric and doing the
Yeah,
thing that like, doing the thing that the customer wants, or
yeah,
in the way that they want to buy, that's a prime example where you've
it is.
already observed the behavior and you've already got the
Yeah,
data, and then you're like, okay, we're building this thing based on the needs of our customer. Whereas a lot of
100%.
people like to pretend something is a customer need, but really they've
That's right.
kind of gone and cherry picked the things
Yeah,
that tell the story that they want.
yeah. But I think when all the details die down, it is a clear case of customer obsession, right? That's what made this work, was customer obsession. We had every indication, both from a metrics perspective and certainly anecdotally from a lot of research that we did, that we had an opportunity to leverage an existing experience, customize it for a different persona, and grow an impressive business. And that's what we were able to achieve. Now, not everyone has access to that type of data, that type of thinking, certainly that type of funding that we had available. But I think that that tenet of customer obsession remains at the core of what has made these businesses successful, is making sure that whether it's a marketplace, an ecosystem, a landing page, whatever it is that you're building to try to get a customer's attention and money, that experience has to resonate with that customer first, or the ecosystem dies before you've built it.
Yeah. Yeah, and last question on that. I imagine that like the supplier side ended up getting to quite a large
Yeah,
volume,
yeah,
like over time. If you're getting to $12 billion in run rate, which is just
yeah,
bananas, it's amazing.
yeah.
Yeah, like it, and so like tell me a little bit about the marketing engagement that you did
Yeah,
with these suppliers over time, how you kept them on the platform and excited and engaged, and like
yeah.
what that maybe how that evolution happened as well. I'd love to hear about it.
Yeah, well, there were a couple different buckets. When I say buckets, I mean sort of, I would almost call them personas within the seller community. The first one was, I just talked about the fact that a lot of those business buyers were buying on Amazon.com through their Prime accounts. So that tells you that there was already a lot of business relevant selection on the website. And when you think about that, it was things like computer monitors that you could use at home or in the office, printers that you could use at home or in the office. School supplies look a lot like office supplies, right? Office furniture looks a lot like home furniture. So there were already a lot of those sort of crossover categories that already existed. So the existing Amazon suppliers of those types of products were probably was really the first cohort, which was, we've got this new generation of buyers. So if you have access to more professional grade, commercial grade, office grade products that look a lot like the existing things that you're already selling, expand your business with Amazon. Expand your business to this new category of buyers. In some cases, it was, if you're selling these in a 6-pack, do you have a 30-pack? Do you have a 50-pack? Do you have a pallet? In some cases that was the differentiator. Then you had some of the net new sort of e-commerce converts, right? That was a longer burn, right? Because you're now selling anything to anyone anywhere in industries that often were ruled by territories and distribution guidelines, right? Amazon always said, we're not here to manage your channel, right? So we don't build territories into our system. We give you the best price from any seller at any time. So those types of suppliers took a little bit longer, but certainly a lot of them joined up, really, because they were not just because it was Amazon and they felt they had to, but we were in the midst of a real e-commerce evolution, right? And often Amazon Business just became one of the e-commerce channels that these suppliers were building. And so, not unlike Appfire, it was, we've got some apps over in this marketplace, we got some products over in that marketplace. We may be selling to Staples and Office Depot at the same time, and we may be selling through our own website. We're diversifying our sales channels through multiple marketplaces and multiple different channel behaviors, recognizing that customers will choose their transactional platform of choice. So if you want to show up in front of that customer, you may need to diversify your offering as well. Where are the customers buying? Let's get in front of them. And that became really the calling card of a lot of where those e-commerce evolving type companies started to focus, which was not just Amazon or bust. It was Amazon as a part of a multi-channel, multi-marketplace, direct channel, your own website. All of those different strategies started to come together. And that's when you were really starting to see chief e-commerce officers and some of these other titles that were coming up, because the recognition was finally settling in that buying on this was not going anywhere. And it was that was going to be the true differentiator, was, were you ready to change your thinking around offering products online if it meant that you had to rethink compensation, you had to rethink territorial boundaries, you had to rethink channel disruption and channel conflict and channel disintermediation strategies. If you were willing to do all of those things, growth was available to you, but it was a heavy lift for big old school companies, and some of them are still struggling.
Love that. Awesome. Well, I mean, I could literally talk to you about this kind of stuff all day. It's no exaggeration. But I did want to wrap up by asking you
Sure.
our famous question. Could you share something that you recently learned that you think the audience would be interested in?
Yeah, I will share something that I learned when I was given the opportunity to join Appfire. And at the time, I was making a decision to leave Qualtrics, and I had been in marketing roles both at Amazon and at Qualtrics, and And my boss is our president. And when he offered me the job, um, it was a channel leader, and and I had to. I thought my professional path was to be a CMO somewhere, sometime soon. I thought that was just sort of me thinking logically about what was next in my career progression. So this challenged me to rethink my own perception of my own path, and so I had a moment where I had to say, do I um, do I trust my almost lazy instinct that this path ahead of me was the right one? Or do I take feedback from someone who sees something in me that I might not see right now and give it a chance?
Mm.
And I looked back on my career, and there were a few moments, including Amazon taking a chance on me, where someone saw something in me that I had not recognized. And I had to make the decision as to whether or not to accept that feedback and realize that I may have been wrong about myself. Um, I realized that every time I had done that and I had accepted the feedback and become willing to change my mind about myself and my path, I had improved my situation. I did it again this time, and I could not be happier with the decision that I've made. And it's proven to me that changing your mind when presented with new information is a superpower.
Yeah.
It's an absolute superpower, and I talk to my team about it all the time. I am delighted when I am presented with new information that forces me to change my mind about something that I thought I had figured out, because it reminds me that I'm still learning and I still have a lot of room to grow. And so those opportunities where you go, this isn't what I expected. This isn't what I had mapped out in my brain. I've proven over and over again that my brain is not the only one that solves difficult problems. And sometimes it's good to let people give you a little feedback about yourself and take a chance. And that's something that I learned once I took a step back and sort of codified the times that I had been challenged by this type of scenario. And I can tell you this, Ty, every time I've come out better for it. I've learned something new about myself. I've learned something new about my path. And I have destroyed some of the preconceived notions that I didn't need to have in the first place. So that's my learning for the day.
I love it. I absolutely love it. My dad always used to say, "A mind is for changing."
Absolutely.
And yeah, and I love that sentiment, and I think that people could benefit a lot from just taking that and applying it to how they're thinking about their own paths as well. So I really appreciate that. Thank you for sharing.
Absolutely.
And thank you so much for spending the time with us today. This is an awesome conversation, and I know that people are going to love hearing it.
Well, I hope so. I've enjoyed it, and I look forward to feedback. Except for your angry team members.
Yeah, watch out!
More
Watch
work
out!
to do. Yeah,
Awesome.
I'll be ready.
All right, thanks, Colin.
All right.